having just two boys,
Yeah.
it's amazing how they are completely different
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
So you have your first son, and then okay, this is easy. I have this.
I got it nailed. And then those techniques completely out the window.
I promise you, it's been like a woof.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, in a lot of things, it's just like, oh dear, okay. So let's navigate the two of them completely different.
Yeah. Welcome back to Raising Men. Now, one of the big differences in the way that I grew up versus how my son is growing up is that we now live in a world that is always on, where our sons are bombarded by digital noise and a culture that tells them that strength means just enduring things. But our guests today, Myra Clay and Marc Krusin, argue that true strength is found in awareness and in stillness. They're based in London, and Myra and Mark are teachers of the Bright Path Ascension Meditation, and they're advocates for emotional awareness. They focus on teaching children and their parents simple meditation techniques for everyday use, allowing both children and their parents to better navigate life's challenges. Today, we'll dive into the power of stillness, the magic of storytelling, and how to raise sons who are as resilient internally as they are externally. Myra, Mark, welcome to Raising Men.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
Yes,
It's a
really
privilege
nice.
to have you. Thank you so much. Now, you teach Ascension Meditation. Tell me what that's about, and then we'll dive into we'll dive into it further from there.
Yes, they are very, very simple techniques based on love, gratitude, compassion, and appreciation. So yeah, they are very, very simple and very gentle, just to do it. And these techniques, you can practice them with the eyes closed or even with the eyes open. So when you interact with people every day or at work or whatever you're doing, you just can do it with the eyes open too.
And it's something that just sort of fits into my normal routine, as opposed to like having to, go dedicate 4 hours to sitting on a rock or something like that. Is that right?
Correctly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now-
yeah, exactly. That's one of the things that I most love about the teaching is that it's enabled that I've always had a busy, professional working life, and one of the most amazing things about the teaching of the Bright Path is that it integrates perfectly into daily life. And, it's not about escaping from daily life. It's about becoming fully present within daily life and leading a much more effective life, in fact, from there.
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of potentially an unlock for me. I really, really struggle with what you're calling stillness, with presentness, with all of the fruits of meditation. And it's an interesting, I in preparation for this episode, I've been thinking about why that is. And I think why it is for me is that I'm not a reactive person by nature. I am pretty good at remaining calm. I'm pretty good at remaining still and not being reactive. And so as a result, I've never had to get really good at it. And so I'm just kind of adequate at making sure that and then my kids came along, and my kids can push my buttons like nobody's business. And in fact, it turned me into, like, I've never been an angry person, but I really, really struggle with anger with the kids, where I'll just flash angry and I'll get really reactive, and, we'll start screaming at each other. And because I never had to develop those skills as I was coming of age, I find that I am really behind. If I were an angrier person in my 20s, then in order to just live my life and get along with the rest of society, I would have had to develop these kinds of skills, but I didn't have to. And so as a result, I'm actually, it's actually been a penalty for me that I'm as level-headed as I am.
Yes.
Do you find that, what kinds of people come to you for help and why?
Oh, sort of, I mean, different kind of people. Yeah, from parents to single persons. I mean, anyone that is looking for something more in life, no? To find that peace, inner peace. But we get parents also, a lot of parents saying, "How can I deal with this?" or "How can I make kids be more calm and everything?" And we just share our experience with our sons, and be very, very simple and very, very, very honest, because for us it's very important to be authentic
Mm.
and be very transparent, because when you are with kids, you can't hide anything. So that's
Yeah.
for us. It's very important to teach to the parents
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they are
You can't really BS kids, can you?
no,
Yeah.
no, no,
They'll just see right through it. They'll call you, it's the emperor has no clothes, right? It's the kid that said, "Hey, wait a minute, he's not wearing anything."
Mm.
And they'll do that to you too. And so you actually have to be a lot more buttoned up
yes.
with the kids. Yeah, how do you find that you have trouble selling the value of stillness to a young boy? I mean, they're so out. My son is everywhere. He's got so much energy. He's loud. He's rambunctious. How do you approach that with him?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've got a lot of energy too, and but it's not for me. It's not about an idea of kind of being externally calm. All right, it's about the turmoil
Mm.
that we have in our minds, or rather, not having it. It's the difference between inner turmoil and inner peace, rather than outer stillness
What a
versus me.
tremendous distinction, and I wasn't making that distinction, but you're right. Yeah, there is a fundamental distinction between inner turmoil and outer freneticness, and they're completely independent of each other. Well, they're not completely independent; they're related to each other, but they're independent.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And
Okay. And so, I mean, do you find that that's a message that resonates with, or what ages does that resonate or fail to resonate with? I mean, can I talk to my 4-year-old and say, "Hey, we need to do some of these practices"? How does that work?
yeah, like this for me has always been about me setting the example.
Yeah.
It's and they see something in us, and in fact, when our children have been struggling, maybe at a new school or whatever, or with friendship groups or whatever, then they have asked, can we learn those techniques? Maybe it will help, and we've said okay, and they've used them for a while. But children are so present; they're often not really the ones that are a problem, in my
Mm.
experience. It's really it's really us that try and control them. They're just being who they are, and the more present we are, the less reactive and difficult they become. Or they might just be having a moment, and they might be
Yeah.
expressing all sorts of stuff. But if we're fully present, often that'll just wash through, right? They'll express it for 5-10 minutes, and then it's gone.
Yeah, because you are communicated something that maybe they can't deal with that, or they don't recognize it, or they don't know what it is. So if you are communicated that, okay, maybe it's a worry there, but everything can be resolved or whatever, or maybe it's a feeling there that they don't know, and then you just can go through that feeling, and you are helping them just to process that. It's just navigating with them the situations, but also for us it's very important that they see, like I said before, what is really is happening to you. So if like Mark said, we react to something, they are like, okay, they get like, oh my god, so this is something very to worry. But if you react for something that maybe you don't like it, but you react like, okay, I don't like it, but let's go through this. It's another approach for them, and they're learning to be more aware of those things.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but it is you that you are driving that boat. It is you that you're going to transmit. How can you navigate feelings, experience, situations? Because if they see you calm, it's going to be also come from the other side.
Yeah.
In a moments, maybe not, but in other moments, yet. Yes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think if they see that you're calm, that teaches them. I mean, it models the behavior that you want to model, but it also teaches them that life is supposed to be encountered that way. Life is supposed to be calm. Life is supposed to be. Yeah, I told this story recently. I have a friend who grew up in, and his dad never maintained their car, or he just wasn't good at that sort of thing, and so things were constantly breaking down. They would drive on a road trip to go on a family vacation, and they would have a flat tire, and they would have to repair the flat tire and stuff like that. And this motivated my friend to become a mechanical engineer because he thought the world was just chaos, and he wanted to figure out how to tame the chaos. And that's that's an example of my friend learning from counterexample.
Yeah.
But it would have been easier for him if he'd learned by example instead, I think.
Well,
Yes.
And so the
so
same is true with with our ability to weather life's challenges in a measured way. I mean, is that a pretty good summary of what you're saying here?
yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. I think
Yeah.
I think we can often, because we're humans, right? We have emotions, we have situations. Some we don't like. And there's a lot of growth in the situations we don't like as well that come up. But it's how we deal and how we react to those situations, right? They're often going to be situations that aren't ideal or the ones that we wouldn't have chosen.
Yeah.
But there is growth there, and it's just about how we react to them. So can we see it as just a situation and manage it as best we can? So make the choices, make the moves that we're able to make in that moment. Or do we see the situation and go into a drama about it, right? And start having endless thoughts about this shouldn't be happening to me. Why is it happening to me? It's not fair. It's not happening to that person. Do you see? And that's very different than just taking the situation at face value and seeing, okay, what are my options? So it's a whole different way of
Yeah.
living.
Yeah, I feel like, I use there's a metaphor that I like to use on this show, which is the difference between the Conan the Barbarian brain and the Sherlock Holmes brain. And the Conan the Barbarian brain is the amygdala, and the Sherlock Holmes brain is the prefrontal cortex. And I feel like these techniques that you're talking about are a way to keep yourself from dropping into the Conan the Barbarian brain, which is almost never the right thing to do, especially when you're dealing with other people in kind of a conversational context.
Hmm.
And I the way that I think about meditation and stillness and that sort of thing is as a way of keeping you in that elevated place where you can make decisions and where you can inspect things and you can draw conclusions and use the smart part of your brain to help guide your activities as opposed to the reactive, relatively dumb part of your brain. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's one more thing that is worth saying, and that is that sometimes when we talk about meditation, we hear this a lot from people that we interact with. There can be a kind of preconceived idea that if we are internally still, then we must also be externally still.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily the case, so especially with reference to children. Sometimes a stern word needs to be said if a child has done something that's unkind or dangerous or disrespectful, then they need to be made aware of that. But one thing is making them aware of it from our own internal frustrations or embarrassment or whatever it may be. And another thing is making them aware of that from a state of pure presence,
Hmm.
and I'm just telling you that that action was unkind or it was disrespectful and so on, just from a much purer state of being. And it has much more effect as well in that case, because it's a pure channel of making someone aware, rather than that being mixed up in a whole vortex of personal frustration, personal anger, personal embarrassment, or
Yeah.
whatever it may be.
That makes so
Yeah.
much sense. So, I mean, if my toddler is throwing a tantrum and I scream at her and I say, I scream, "You must respect my authority," then that is going to have zero effect. It will actually, it will have, it'll have a perverse effect, which is that she's just going to dig in and double down. And actually, that's what I want her to do. I don't want her to be susceptible to someone coming in over the top and forcing her to do stuff. I want her to have her own sense that she has power over her own body and her reactions and that sort of thing. Whereas if I'm able to calmly explain to her, if I'm able to keep myself still and I'm able to keep myself present and I'm able to come into her and show her a mirror to what's going on and how that's not going to accomplish what she wants to accomplish, and give her the tools to recover and give her the tools to accomplish what she wants, then that's A, more effective, and B, more in alignment with the values that I have with her. Is that, would you agree with that?
Totally, because it's clarity from you. When you have to give a message to her or yeah, to your to your children. Yeah, it is also very important to say how you feeling. Also, there are moments for me that get very like maybe I don't know anxious or something,
Yeah.
and I talk to them, and then in that moment maybe I'm not completely open or completely clear of what I want, but then after I can go back and explain to them this is how I felt. It was not clear for me what to say to you. I was feeling maybe angry or anxious or whatever is there, or I was not agreeing with you. And they get with that feeling, okay, it's okay also to be angry.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it is okay
I
to talk
one of the
about
things
that.
I really struggle with, is my 4-year-old especially. This is the one that is just so good at my 7-year-old is past this point. He used to be like this, but my 4-year-old is just so good at triggering me and is so good at making me mad. And I just need to get away from it sometimes. But I
Mhm,
don't want to get away from it in a way. I mean, she'll beg me to stay. Please don't go. Please don't go. Please don't go. And that creates this crisis with me because
mhm,
on the one hand, I don't want to teach her that I'm going to abandon her.
mhm,
Even if she's being a jerk, right? I'm always here for you, but I'm not, right? There are there are situations that I need to get away from in order to have the appropriate reactions. And that is not something that I can explain to her in those moments. And so I feel like that's a place for one of the techniques, or for the techniques that you're talking about. Is that right?
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because you can, as we say, I do it so many times in
Yeah.
front of the with my eyes open, and sometimes I go because obviously I bring in patterns from my family also.
Yeah.
So so sometimes I just go in and then I come back and I say, okay, no, I have a choice here.
Yeah.
What is my choice? Is my choice is to be angry, and I do it sometimes. And then there are also choices I say, no, I have to stay here. And whatever it happens, I'm just going to stay here.
Mm.
And they receive that message very clear.
Yeah.
And also is for them, when we taught to our children, especially to our older one, when he was younger, the first technique of praise and then gratitude, we always also we say to him, if you are angry, just or you don't like how I'm reacting, just do your technique, and that helps also. It's not just from the parent, but also from the kid that you play together this game
Yeah.
of choosing something different.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so talk to me about the techniques. Tell me about the techniques. What are they and how are they used?
Yeah.
They're techniques, very simple techniques actually, that we think internally, based on praise, gratitude, love, and compassion. And we so within the practice, the advice would be to always, what we say, ascend, i.e. meditate. 3 times a day for around 20 minutes each time, ideally in the morning, in the afternoon, and once in the evening before bed, with eyes closed. Then, whenever you remember any one of the techniques with eyes open at any time.
Okay.
So the eyes closed is a much deeper healing. Obviously, it sort of heals stress in the nervous system and in the body that's maybe built up over many, many years. And the eyes open one is more about remaining present and on limiting the on-take of stress that we may have in our day. So if we're in a difficult meeting, for example, right, where there's high tension, there are a lot of people discussing, I don't know, a high risk project or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And we can use our techniques with our eyes open there. And very often that'll bring us to a place of presence, and it'll very often completely change the whole dynamic within the room as well. People that were really on edge or really full of ego will start sort of settling down, becoming lighter and more joyful, and the whole conversation becomes much more open. Often we see it that way. So it works on 2 levels.
Yeah, I love that. I love, like I said at the beginning, I love how it's so easily integrated into even a busy schedule, right? And I think for folks like me, part of the reason that we never get into it is because it's so difficult. Like, it's not my top priority. This is not something,
Mm.
I'm like I said, I'm pretty good at that stuff, but I'm not the world class I
Hmm.
would like to be. And so, other things come up. And so if I can integrate it into my routine in a way that is less disruptive to my schedule, or even in a way maybe that enhances my schedule because it allows me to be more efficient throughout the day. I suspect that there's real value there.
Hmm.
Yes. Yeah, completely.
So tell me
Yeah,
about
we don't.
tell me about the book, The Boy in the Pink Light. Tell me what's the book about? What's the pink light I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Yes, this idea came when I was working in a nursery, and I really wanted to put out something there, just to help parents. It's for children, obviously, but I think the main thing is to target parents,
Yeah.
um, to interact more with children and talk about more, like with feelings, or yeah, and going inwards instead of always looking for something outside to fix my life.
Yeah.
So it's a variation technique that actually we learn about this technique also because of the Bright Path. It's a technique that is like an extra technique just to play and very simple. So I just wanted to apply it for kids in a more fun and easy way. Um, yeah, so this idea came out, and so it's the light, that we are looking outside to help me to comfort for situations that maybe I'm feeling, because I grew up like that. I was always I was not allowed to talk about my feelings when I was younger. So
Mm.
I was always looking for that someone loved me outside.
Yeah.
So for me, the pink light is just to return to that space that is your heart, that is always going to be there. And recognize that if you are in here, you don't have to look outside, and then you can trust in yourself,
Yeah.
and feel more growing up more secure with yourself, and yeah, and be more happy with who you are. So yeah, that's the idea of the boy in pink light, just to recognize that inner space that we have. And that's what these techniques that we teach, they do. It's just going, it's like a car taking back to your heart, and just be there, and find maybe happiness, stillness, peace, whatever is there, that we just can recognize it, because we forget when we grow up. Yeah. So yeah, that's.
Do you find that there are differences in the ways that boys and girls receive these messages, or that they need to be communicated in ways? that are different between boys and girls?
That's a very good question. I don't personally know because obviously having two boys, but
Yeah.
with when I was working in nursery, maybe I can see maybe girls or the way I am too. We are more, you know, thinking about how can I be more um myself, but I need to look for something outside, no, to have a very good friends or something. I grew up like that, also feeling quite insecure about um if my friends really going to like me or no, the way I am. So, and I don't see that with the boys, but that's my experience because of the two sons. But maybe it's yeah. So yeah, I don't know to be honest
Yeah,
about.
interesting. Yeah,
Maybe it is.
yeah.
Maybe it is
I don't know. I'll
because
try. I'll get back to you. It's because I have a good experimental subset. I've got one of each, and so we'll do
yeah,
that. Right.
exactly. Tell us. I mean, obviously, I hear from friends that have maybe a boy or girl.
Yeah,
They see the dynamic is completely different.
tons of differences, but it's hard to
Yes.
understand. In your own limited experience, there's difference between if you had two boys, there's difference between the individuals too, and so it's hard to
Yes.
know how much of
Wow.
those are, and I don't know that it matters, right? The differences you have between individuals, it doesn't matter whether they're due to their gender or whether they're just due to their birthing order or they're just the fact that it's Tuesday.
And
It-
also having just two boys
yeah,
is it's amazing how they are completely different
yeah,
also.
yeah.
So you have your first son and then okay, this is easy. I have the
I got it
experience, but
nailed, and then those techniques completely out the window.
I promise you, it's been like a oof.
Yeah,
Like I mean, in a lot of things, it's just like, oh dear, okay. So let's navigate the two of them completely different.
yeah.
Mm.
Well, let me. So I want to explore another thing that is based on your kind of unique perspective, which you grew up in Mexico and then you moved to London from that, and so from there you experienced two um, extremely different cultural views of masculinity over a lot of years. I'm so interested to understand, like, what do you see as the differences there? What is, healthy about those differences? What is unhealthy about those differences? What wisdom do you have from the perspective of being immersed in both of those cultures?
Oh, that's a very good question. Yeah, maybe one of the parts I can see that because in Mexico, yeah, it's a lot more of um like I don't know how you say like male things that yeah I don't know
Right.
Machismo, maybe, like there's kind of a vision of masculinity that is very,
Complete-
it's I don't know, something.
yeah, machistas. I don't
Yeah.
know how. Yes, machismo. Yeah, that's right. And here I don't see that. I mean, obviously there are some people, yes, but I don't see that in a very maybe clear or maybe in the surface. Yeah, I don't.
Hmm.
I can see there are more shyness here with the culture in the sense of as a human beings. I see more like they're more like I don't know, shy to say something or shy to interact with you. Maybe you find something in the leaf in your house and they're shy just to say good morning. And obviously Mexico are completely different in that sense. So
Interesting.
so yeah, I can see that. And we tried and Mark is really amazing in that because he doesn't feel also 100% English. We met in Italy actually, in Milan. We used to live in Milan before we have kids. So he's yeah, you're coming from also from Italy, that culture that is also very Latin way. So we tried also to teach our kids that to be open, to be I don't know, to be more like Latin way, let's say it
Yeah,
in
yeah,
that
that could
sense.
be a superpower in a much more
Yes,
reserved society like the UK.
exactly.
Is
Yes.
if you're just
Yeah.
gregarious and out there and willing to chat people up, and that is just not,
Mhm.
if that's
Yeah.
not part of the culture there, and as
Yes.
much, yeah, and similar. there's probably a similar dynamic here in the U.S. I think
Mhm.
there's, the culture of the U.S. is really different than Mexico and really different than the U.K., I think.
Yes.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
it's interesting to explore. Well, I
Yeah.
like to, Mark, were you going to say something?
Um, Not directly related to that.
Yeah.
I Yeah, it's kind of related to both in the sense I think both in the UK and in Mexico, there's a thing about expressing feelings
Mhm,
for men or young men,
mhm.
right? And that it's kind of it's not really the kind of thing that's on anyone's radar much.
Yeah.
And, often times people will see young boys who are so full of energy and they might be, quite physical with one another, with what they do, and they think, oh, they're fine or whatever. Or I can tell them off and shout at them and it won't matter because they're just really full of energy. But what is often not perceived is how deeply a boy, even being shouted at, can affect them inside.
Yeah.
I think that's something that as societies, both Latin and Anglo-Saxon, we need to be much, much more aware of.
Mm.
And I know that because I've sat with my sons, at night when they're sort of about to go to bed, or when they were younger, I'd read them a story and we'd sit talking. And often, once I'd turn the lights off, something would come up. This happened today. And, I would sit and listen. And in fact, they were deeply disturbed by something that on the surface looked like it wasn't that important at all.
Boy, I mean, this is really a lesson that I'm taking away from this discussion
Mhm.
is there is this distinction that you made in the beginning about the inner turmoil versus the external turmoil, or the inner experience versus the external demonstration of that experience is really independent. And that and and that's what you're driving home there is, just because it seemed like water off a duck's back when XYZ happened doesn't mean that it didn't have an impact in the internal experience. And so if we don't develop the tools to tease that out of our boys, if we don't develop the tools to model that for them, then they're going to really struggle in our modern culture, especially with, I mean, as I mentioned in the very beginning, I grew up in such a different culture than we have now. The amount of distraction, the amount of noise, the amount of just, it's possible to be plugged in all the time. Back when I was a kid, like we
Yeah.
sometimes would sit in the car and be bored.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The car was, my mom had to run into a store and she said it was going to be 5 minutes, but it was really 30 minutes. And we would sit in the car and the car would be,
Yeah.
off, right? Or maybe just the air conditioner running, and we had nothing to do. And that notion is unheard of to my children. The
Mhm.
Right.
fact that they could
Yes.
sit there and have nothing to do for 20 minutes,
Exactly.
it
Right.
would be anathema to their entire experience. And that's something I kind of struggle with too. Like, I don't know, that's good to lose the skill of being bored. But
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know
Yeah, I
that it's
agree.
necessarily good to have it either, right? I mean, I don't know. It's hard to know. And to what extent am I just an old man yelling at clouds about how kids these days, right? But it feels like there's something there.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
But
Yeah, you're right too. I think it can be a big distraction from anything that might happen to be going on inside from an earlier incident. If we're
yeah,
constantly tuned into this thing it's very stimulating, right? So it detracts from whatever that internal state might be, or that
yeah,
internal kind of um discomfort
right.
might be. We distract ourselves from it, and but it's still there, right? We're not dealing with it. We're just distracting ourselves from it.
Yeah, it's just going to get buried down and then it oozes
Right.
out in maladaptive ways.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Totally.
it's good insight. Well,
Mm.
I always like to finish up these conversations by asking people more or less the same question, and that is, I like to ask people for a principle. So, if there is one principle that comes to mind when I ask you that parents listening should think about when trying to raise excellent men, what would that principle be?
And
The only thing I could say is just get as present as you can. Find a way to get present.
Yeah.
If you don't feel that you can be present around your children, find a way. Look for some kind of teaching, some kind of meditation, some kind of practice whereby you can get present. The one thing I would say is that I can't, there are a lot of people that talk about formulas. You with your children, you can do X, Y, and Z, and it will work like that. And to an extent, that may be true. But the reality is that every single situation throughout the day requires a different approach, and that you can only be fully aware of what that approach is if you're truly, truly present here now.
yeah, I think just to the, what Mark said is, and also just to realize that that window that they're going to be very open to you is very short. So if we miss that window, we're missing a lot. So yeah, just to be aware of that, because it goes fast.
That is a powerful, powerful sentiment. Yeah, there is a limited window.
Yeah.
And that applies in the micro, in the sense that in any given event, your opportunity to impact that event in a positive way is limited, right? So, but it's also true in the macro. If you fail to establish the right kind of connection with your son, by the time he's 13, you've lost the opportunity to do that.
Yes.
Or you're really fighting an uphill battle. And so, yeah, it applies at all levels of
Totally.
abstraction there. That's a really, really powerful statement.
Fine.
Yeah. I one of the things that I've really been impacted by in this project, the Raising Men project, is that our sons don't need us to be perfect. They need us to be present. And that's something that I say a lot. And because it's almost a mantra for me, because I struggle with it so mightily. And I think that, what I'm learning from you guys here is that one of the greatest strengths that we can have for ourselves and that we can model for our boys and that we can give our boys is an ability to sit in that stillness and be an observer to our condition and think through how we're going to respond, as opposed to just being reactive. And yeah, I just want to express my appreciation for that lesson, and thank you both so much for being here.
Well, thank you so much for having us. It's been really, really nice to talk to you, Shaun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been such a pleasure. Thanks so much, Shaun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Lovely to
And for
meet you.
those of you listening, please like and subscribe and share with another parent who might be going through the same kind of stuff you do, or who might find some value in this episode. Thank you so much for listening to Raising Men, and remember that you are a great parent. Raising Men is produced by Fio Hernandez. This episode was edited by Ralph Tolentino.